Hey up viewers and viewresses, my name is John Red Strategist and welcome back to So You're Being Hunted. This is episode 222 now. So, remember of course in the last episode I was joined by Phil. We had another of those very sort of podcasty style episodes where me and him, where basically we don't really do a particular challenge. I just sort of wander around, chattering away, doing my own thing, talking about various things that have been going on lately in life and all that. And you know what, this episode is pretty much the same, so obviously I'm on my own this time, but as usual of course this is just going to be another kind of podcast episode. I will get back to more challenges of course at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future, but in the meantime, you know, I like to do these podcast type episodes every so often, where I just chill out, you know, because the series is a game that's good for that kind of thing, you know. It's one of those games which at times can be nice and laid back. You can just sort of wander around to your heart's content, and it kind of lends itself very well to just a sort of chill out session where where I'm not really doing a particular challenge or not trying to fulfill a particular objective, but where I'm just talking to you guys out there. You know, I say talking to, rather more just I'm doing all the talking pretty much, of course, but you know, I freaking say that pretty much every time I do one of these episodes, but you know what I mean by now. So actually, you know, in sort of general Red Strategist news, one thing I am thinking about with these kind of podcast style episodes for Sir, because in the past what I've always done with these kind of things is just sort of generated a random map each time, but I'm thinking that actually is it really worth doing that? Maybe actually I could, you know, let's say I take this map, normally in my default format, the way I do it with these kind of podcast style episodes, I just generate this map, I do maybe just one episode like this, and then, you know, once I've done that episode I just delete this map, and if I ever do another podcast style episode where I'm just talking and not really doing anything, then I would just generate a whole new map. But I think actually there's no real point doing that. I should just keep this map and maybe just play along with it, and every so often just intersperse the series with challenges. That's something I could definitely do. It'd probably be a nice, good approach. So I'll probably do that. Just makes things a bit more, I don't know what the word is, convenient maybe? Is that what I'm trying to say? A bit easier, perhaps, in a way. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. A bit easier. Let's put it that way. So yes. So that's one thing I'm thinking about doing, really, with the format of these podcast-style episodes. Just obviously saves me having to generate a new map each time. But yeah, it'll make things just a bit more convenient, like I say. So there we go. Obviously, in other news, though, in other General Red Strategist news, obviously by the time this video actually goes out, then there may have been a change of circumstances. In fact, it's likely that there will have been. But at the moment, my relatives, well, I have some relatives from Australia who are currently visiting over here in the UK, and they're an absolutely lovely bunch. You know, they basically they live right out in the middle of nowhere in the Northern Territory. It is the Northern Territory, isn't it? The outback. You know, there's nothing there, it's just desert and scrubland. Australia, of course, is one of those countries which, you know, renowned for every animal out there being able to potentially kill you because it's so venomous. You don't want that, of course, do you? You don't want animals to kill you. It's not very nice. That's the thing. So my Australian relatives are over at the moment, they're visiting, and you know, when I was thinking about them before, I had this really weird idea. So You're Being Hunted devs, if you're out there listening to this, make me some DLC for So You're Being Hunted in which it gets transplanted into Australia, please. I had this random thought. Could you imagine a So You're Being Hunted set in Australia? Obviously it wouldn't be called Sir, probably. It'd be called G'day you wallaby, you're being hunted, son. You friggin' pom. I'm sorry, of course, if I'm offending any Australians, but your accent does lend itself very easily to being parodied, let's be brutally honest. G'day, mates. Put a roo on the barby. You know, stealth rating wallaby and all that. You could do a fantastic So You're Being Hunted DLC. So You're Being Aussied. There we go. Because, you know, let's be honest, Australians, they are just British people, essentially. Except they don't want to be British people. Ah. Again, I'm making it my mission this episode to offend just about every Australian person I can possibly offend. So yeah, Australians are just wannabe Brits, so are New Zealanders pretty much, and Canadians, let's be brutally honest here. I mean, come on, Canadians with their frigging red jackets and their mounted police. I mean, they're basically wanting to be British, aren't they? More or less, let's be brutally honest here. And you know, Aussies, they might like to pretend that they're not British at all, but let's be honest, they're British. They were descended from British, therefore they're British. All you Aussies out there, are you offended yet? Yeah, who knows? Well, if you are, go and suck on the roo meat, seriously. Go and slap a kangaroo on the Barbie and all that. Yes, oh, toy train, nice. I just realised I picked up some books there a second ago, but I'm not actually reading them. Our tremendous stench. Once the cause of the stench had been confirmed by the men from London, people began to arrive from all over the nearby counties. What a tremendous stench, they would comment to locals, and we would smile and agree, and proudly tell the tale of how the all-pervading stink had come to be. Even the local alehouse, the Red Lion, was to take a new name in honour of the great smell, and it was truly the most important odour ever to have made its home in our part of the world. These golden times were in retreat, however, when a foreigner arrived from the east. Despite being dressed with gold and tailored clothes, the foreigner was evil, and he quickly found his way to the heart of our stench, and so, it's told, he took it for his people. I don't think I've ever read that before. That sounds like a new one. Huh. Did the music just weirdly cut out then? How very peculiar. Very strange indeed. Don't know what was going on there, but whatever. Okay. I'm just stacking up on random bits and bobs here. Bits and bobs that I don't really friggin' need. What am I doing? What am I playing at, eh? Yes, you know, that actually was a challenge suggestion someone left for me. I think it was called the HP Lovecraft Challenge. Something about maxing out sort of building settings and then going around looking for all the kind of Lovecraftian style literature in the game. Because there's a lot of literature in this game, in So You're Being Hunted, which, when you kind of read it, there are definitely kind of Lovecraftian themes going on with it. You know, we talk of other worlds, things like that. So maybe that's a challenge actually I will do at some point, the HP Lovecraft Literature Challenge. I mean, I did do a literature kind of challenge of sorts once, didn't I? Where I basically went around trying to piece together the kind of backstory of the So You're Being Hunted world. You all remember that? I'm sure I did something along those lines, didn't I? Once, a long time ago, for So You're Being Hunted. Okay, there's enough stocking up on items. I don't freaking need items. What am I doing? So yes. There you go, everybody. So You're Being Hunted devs, if you're watching, get on with that. Australian So You're Being Hunted DLC. I'm telling you, it would be hilarious. You know, doesn't need to be a big game. Just maybe a sort of expansion where you can generate a single island with a very Australian theme to it. In fact, actually, you could have Australian biomes. You could have an outback biome, hunting snakes and spiders, and all other, you know, horrible beasts. Koalas in the trees, wallabies to and froing. The most stereotypical Australian game ever. That's actually a good question, now that I think about it. Are there any actual games out there that are set in Australia? That's a question. That's something I don't think I've ever encountered. Are there any games that are set in an Australian setting? I actually don't know. I can imagine that there's maybe, you know, some obscure hunting simulator or something out there that's set in the Australian outback. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a game, but what about, say, an FPS game or a platformer or an adventure game, something like that, that's set in Australia? Is there such a thing? That's your homework, viewers and vieweresses, after this episode. I want you to go out, and I want you to get on Google, on whatever search engine you please, you know, and have a look. Games set in Australia. Are there any, and are there any particularly notable ones? So I'm talking big titles here. Big sort of, you know, FPSs, anything like that. Really kind of deep, involved games. Not just, you know, some shitty little, like, hunting or fishing simulator game or something like that. Proper adventure titles. So yes. Also, actually, on the subject, I just mentioned search engines a moment ago, and I had another thought that just popped into my head. Obviously, everyone these days pretty much uses Google, but do you know, any of you viewers out there, do you remember those dark days back in the sort of the 90s and the early 2000s when you had other search engines that people used to use? Who remembers Alta Vista? Do you remember that one? That was another one that was like the big competitor to Google at the time. Obviously, it's faded now into obscurity, But yeah, like I say, another big competitor to Google at the time. I used to use Alta Vista when I was a kid. Then, of course, I got into high school and I learnt how superior Google was. And, of course, I haven't looked back since. I always use Google these days as a search engine. Another one, actually, that I can remember at the time was Ask Jeeves. God, do you remember that one, Ask Jeeves? God, that was awful, that search engine. It was terrible. I always remember my high school IT teacher. One of the first things when I started at high school and I went to my first high school IT class, one of the first things I remember my high school IT teacher ever telling the class was, never use Ask Jeeves because it's terrible. And my God, it was. I remember it being just utterly horrible to look at, and the search results it produced were god-awful. But yeah. Another one actually that I think technically is still going these days, but which nobody's ever using, is Bing. Does anybody use Bing? Does anybody use Bing for anything? Be honest. Be honest here actually. If ever you use Bing, is it do you ever use Bing just to navigate to Google? Because that seems to be what everyone uses Bing for these days. The only real reason which I think people use Bing for. Do people use Bing for anything else? That's another question. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you use Bing for anything else? MD Galen, gone forever. Maybe that's a challenge I'll do at some point. The, commemoration challenge. The remembrance challenge, let's put it like that. Find as many gravestones as possible and see, how many different types of names and weird inscriptions are actually coded into the game. So not so much a challenge, but more an exploration of what's actually in the game. That is something you could do, because it's not uncommon for me to find new things this late in So You're Being Hunted that I've never seen before, things that I never knew existed in the game. Like there was a time, obviously a long while ago, when I first found out you could shoot the robot out of the balloon. That was a thing that I once discovered. And then, also shooting out the searchlight. Also, I obviously discovered that with the lanterns, the street lamps in the villages, you can damage them. That was another thing I discovered late into my So You're Being Hunted series that I'd never known. Yeah, there's always stuff in So You're Being Hunted that the devs have put in which I've never really noticed before. So yeah, that might be something I might do for a future challenge, actually. Or, something like that. Just, set up a new map with biomes where kind of large structures, so I'm guessing churches, are kind of maxed out, and then go to as many graveyards as possible and just have a look at what sort of inscriptions you can find on the gravestones, because I imagine there's probably some interesting ones, little in-jokes and things like that you can find. Who knows, grey and white, or probably some interesting names. I mean, I don't know, are the names kind of randomly generated? I don't think they are. Because there's the memorials as well. You can see one off in the village over there. And if you look at them, some of the names on there seem very kind of unique. They're probably kind of names of donors and things like that. So it'd be interesting maybe to, tell you what, I'm going to make a note of that. We're going to call it a remembrance challenge. We're going to make the challenge to basically, it's not going to have a time limit, but I'm just going to max out sort of buildings and large structures, and I'm going to go around looking at graveyards and memorials and what sort of names are actually on them, just to see if there's any kind of interesting inscriptions, any interesting monikers, anything of the sort. I'm sure that will make for an interesting video. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this episode up here. So forget what I was just saying at the start of the video about the format for these podcast style episodes, about maybe preserving this map and just sort of perhaps reusing it each time. Fuck it, I'll just make a new map for each one, who knows. But yeah, I'm going to make a note of that challenge suggestion, because I might do that next. It'd be a good one, I reckon. So yeah, thank you for joining me then, everyone, for another podcast style episode. So You're Being Hunted devs, get working on the Australian DLC for this game, if you're watching. No, I'm just joking, of course. But obviously also homework for all you viewers and vieweresses out there. Let me know, are there any good games out there set in Australia? Good FPSs, action games, adventure games, whatever. I'm sure that'd be interesting to find out. Well, there you go. So, if you're not doing so already, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Links in the video description. Links for everything is in the video description, including my propagandist channel as well, where you can go and watch me react to /watch/review anime content. So if you're interested in that, go and check it out. It's very, very interesting. I don't have many videos on it, and of course I don't update it all that often, but I update it when I get the chance, and I always aim to have some nice content on there. So yeah, Other than that, thank you everybody for joining me for this podcasty style episode. Hope you had a nice chill out session with me, just talking in the background about various things. But in the meantime, this is me signing off now. Thank you everybody and goodbye. Oh, got him. Shit. Get off the edge. Oh, no, go. Get out of here, get out. No, I'm gonna die. Ah! That's that monstrosity finished off. Get over there. See ya. Oh shit, no. Oh, fuck. I did not mean to do that. Oh, please don't tell me I have to kill it again now. Shit! Got to stop it. Yeah. Oh lord, no. Holy crap, this area's horrible. Oh my god, I'm being shot to fucking pieces. Ah! Oh my, what the fuck? Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. Whoa, Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Fucking hell. Bloody hell, that did like 1 million damage. This better not be a... Whoa! Shit! No! Oh my fucking god! How many... What?